celebrating 10 years of possibility. Pilot Flying J and Halloran Hilton Hill present Anything is Possible. Today's guest, Mayor Madeline Rogero.
Welcome to another edition of Anything is Possible. These are great stories about great people who prove with their lives that anything is possible. This is Madeline Rogero. She is mayor of the city of Knoxville, the first female mayor of the city of Knoxville. We welcome you to Anything is Possible.
Thank you, Halloran.
I met you years ago. It might have been even 20 years ago. When were you on county commission?
From 1990 to 98.
Yeah, so I met you as soon as I moved here, and I was covering county commission, and I tell this story every time. I know it's kind of old and boring at this point, but I'd be sitting there, all of the commissioners would be there, and some issue would be on the table, and they would say, well, let's ask Madeline. And you knew book, chapter, and verse. It wouldn't be like, well, I think the number is, you go, it's $27,313.12 because on page 5 of the report, paragraph 2, it says, and I remember sitting there going, this lady does her homework.
Well, there's a little slight exaggeration, but close.
That's close.
I did do my homework.
That's pretty close. When you were sitting there on county commission, did you envision being mayor of the city of Knoxville? Was that within your bandwidth of possibilities at that point?
You know, I think when I was on commission, I didn't really see that, but at some point I looked back in some old notes, just cleaning out files and such, and I saw where I had put down there that was, you know, that I might want to be mayor someday, but I wasn't consciously thinking about that when I was a county commissioner.
Let's go back to your childhood. Where are you from?
I was born in Jacksonville, Florida. Both my parents were born and raised there. And when I was in first grade, I guess that was 1958, we moved down to the Space Coast, 20 miles south of Cape Canaveral. It was during the height of the early space program. And we lived about 20 miles south of the Cape in a little subdivision that had been palmetto bushes that were cleared out, and the subdivision was built. My dad was a plumber, and the whole economy was booming, and houses were being built to accommodate all the scientists from up north and different places that were moving down. So we moved into Seacoast Shores.
You daddy's girl?
I am. I'm very close to my mother, but I was always a daddy's girl, yeah.
Tell me about, I want to talk about both of them. Tell me about your dad. What kind of guy was he? What's his name?
John Rogero. He now lives right across the river from Huntington, West Virginia, he and his wife, Judy. And my dad is a very loving person. He was the one that everybody in the neighborhood wanted to sit on his lap and talk to him and, you know, hang out with him. He was an outdoorsman. He loved to fish and hunt. He always had what we call beach buggies, because we were just across the A1A from the beach. And those beach buggies would also be the hunting vehicles, you know, the jeeps that he would take into the woods when he went hunting.
Did you hunt?
We went camping. I was too young at the time. I always thought when I got older that I would. We were always jealous of the boys, our cousins and my older brother, because they got to actually go do it. But we hung out at the camp, and we would have Thanksgiving dinner out in the woods because my dad, my brother, and all my uncles and cousins would be out there hunting. So we spent a lot of time doing that. He had race cars. He's a jack of all trades. He can do just about anything, build a house, do electrical work, do plumbing. And so he had race cars. My mom wouldn't let him drive them because he had kids and a mortgage and a business. But I remember him telling me that the best drivers of these stock cars were the boys from Tennessee and Virginia who had moved down to Florida. I remember that as a young girl hearing that, because they knew how to drive those mountain roads, and they were good at the quarter track, asphalt track that we went to. So on Friday nights, we'd take the Sportsman and modified cars over to Orlando Speedway, and then on Saturday nights, we'd stay home and go to the O'Galley Speedway.
You know what's interesting about that? Two things I didn't think about, because the name of the show is Anything is Possible, and I do believe great leaders and great people are great because of what they believe is possible. But you said your dad was a jack of all trades. You said he could do anything. Mm-hmm. So you grew up around somebody that who did things and was very possible.
He also, if he didn't know how to do it, we didn't realize that.
Right, he knew how to. But the fact that you know so much rich detail about, you know, his outdoorsmanship and what he did at the racetrack and that kind of thing, because he included you in it.
Right.
Even as a little girl, you were included.
Right.
Talk a little bit about being included. I mean, because that had to give you a sense that I'm a girl, but I can do anything too.
That's right. He would work on the cars in the garage. And so I would sit out there and hand him the tools. He would say, give me this, give me that, and I'd hand him the tools. But I wasn't allowed to go in the pits because little girls didn't go in the pits, so my older brother got to do that. And years later, when we were talking about that, he said, you know, Madeline, you should have been the one in the pits. I mean, my brother deserved to be in there too, but he realized that I had a love for it and enjoyed just being around him and around that. My dad also, we were into archery, and the whole family was into archery. So I have pictures of my mom in her shorts and saddle shoes and there with the bow and arrow and all of us, the big club that we belonged to. We would do that as a family.
Wow, that, I mean, just when he said you should have been in the pits, I don't know if that was setting the stages for politics, because
That's the pits.
because that could be construed that way. But neat part of that story being in Florida. Let's take a break here. When we come back, I want to talk about your father had a business. He was a plumber. It was a boom town because of the space industry, but then the economy shifted. That's right. I want to pick up where the economy shifts, and as a result of that, your world shifted. My guest is the mayor of Knoxville, Madeline Rogero, and she can go in the pits too. I mean, the good pits, like she can fix your car or do archery, or she can do anything. Back with more in a moment.
Possibility powered by Pilot Flying J, Covenant Health, Home Federal, and the Knoxville News Sentinel. Coming up.
She always had a lot of love, a lot of attention, a lot of encouragement from her older siblings. And I think that's a big part of it. I think, and I had that from her.
This is Anything is Possible. I'm Halloran Hilton Hill, and my guest is Knoxville Mayor Madeline Rogero. Mayor Rogero. Yeah?
Sounds good.
So we left off on your story. You're in Florida, archery, stock cars,
hunting, fishing.
You're that girl, and but the world kind of shifted.
That's right. Back in the mid-'60s, the space program went through a change. Some of it was moved out to Houston, Texas, and a lot of businesses, people lost their jobs. Scientists were pumping gas around there, and my dad's business went under. And so, because everything came to a halt. And so we ended up, my dad had a brother who lived up in Dayton, Ohio, and he helped my dad find a job up there in the plumbing business. So he moved up there, and a few months later, right when I had graduated from 8th grade, and we were all out of school for the summer, then we moved up to Dayton, Ohio. Actually stopped in Knoxville along the way.
Really? So you touched and blessed the ground that you would come back to.
That's right. I didn't know it at the time. But.
So when you get to Ohio, I moved a fair amount as a preacher's kid. When you move somewhere new, it's new. Now, some people take on new as an adventure. Other people take on new as, I was grounded in my community. I was rooted. How did new feel to you in Ohio?
New felt great to me. Now, I had an older brother and a younger sister, and it was harder on both of them. My brother was in a rock and roll band, and he was a rising junior in high school, so he had to give that up. My sister had a lot of connections as she was a rising 8th grader. So as a rising 9th grader, though, for some reason I was different, and I really embraced it, and I was excited about the adventure, something new, meeting new people.
Has that been kind of part of the way you embrace new anyway in your life?
Yes, I think so. I've moved a lot in my life. I mean, I've been here 31 years, but prior to that, I moved around a lot on my own when I was older, when I left home. And I've had, my career has been one of movement. I didn't stick in one job for a long time. Everything was a new adventure, a new challenge, gaining new skills, kind of transferring the skills that I had. So I think that's been a part of my life, is embracing change, embracing adventure.
What kind of student were you?
Well, I was an A student.
Why were you a good student? Were you driven by a need to make the A, or did your curiosity drive you to want to learn and to do really well because it just was satisfying to you to give your best?
Yeah. Well, I enjoyed school. I mean, I enjoyed learning. Even today, I enjoy learning about new things. I've got shelves of books that I like to read, and I think certainly I wanted to achieve. I wanted to do well, and I wanted that A, but it was also because I was interested in the subject and in learning.
Were you competitive with your brothers and your brother and sister?
Not with my brother. He was 2 years older. My sister and I were 16 months apart, and we were very close and remain very close today. She's wonderful, very accomplished. She's an architect and now a professor at Miami University of Ohio. But we had our moments of competitiveness. I mean, we shared the same room, so we always got on each other's nerves. She said I always had to be the teacher when we played school. But I was older.
Tell me about your mom.
My mom is wonderful. My dad was one of 7 kids. My mom is one of 10. And she's second from the youngest. So she was the baby girl in her family. And she loved all of her kids equally. She never played favorites. And she's the type of person where her glass is always half full, and that's the way I am. She is, nothing can stop her, nothing can discourage her. She's very positive. And both of my parents are very open. We always had a house full of people, relatives or others, and that were there. And she's a big influence on my life.
Do you know how she got that way? Is it an earned optimism? In other words, I've met people who they've looked at life and they've said, your reality is this. It's always going to be whatever's in front of you. Now, you'll make a decision about how you process reality. You can process it, oh my God, this is the worst thing ever, or you can process it, this is an adventure. But at some point, people will earn that perspective. They've been through something, they were raised a certain way. Mm-hmm. How did she get that way?
Because she was the second to the youngest, and she had 7 brothers, so 6 older brothers and 2 older sisters. They all doted on her. They gave her a lot of attention. There was about a 20-year span from the oldest to her. And so she always had a lot of love, a lot of attention, a lot of encouragement from her older siblings. And I think that's a big part of it. I think, and I had that from her. And so I think that's why my glass is always full and why I feel confident of things that I do.
What were some of the things she would say to you that let you know?
Well, she was always proud of her kids, and she would always let you know that she was, proud. Now, she would tell us if we did something wrong when we did, but she was always just very confident that you can do anything you want to do. And she always would say, you look like $1 million. You have a new dress on or something. That was her expression. You look like $1 million. So she's just a very positive person. She is to this day at almost 85.
On the night you were inaugurated, was she here?
Oh, yes.
Can you let us into the conversation you had with her after everything was done?
She was just so thrilled. She's just so positive. She was so thrilled. She had been there with me when I ran for county commission, when I ran for re-election, when I ran for mayor 8 years ago, and then now. And it was just, I'll tell you what she says, get some rest. That's the other thing she says, get some rest.
Wow. We're going to take another break. When we come back, I want to talk about, all right, so you're in Ohio, you're a 9th grader. Let's kind of get you to college and get you on your career path as we make our way to you becoming the first female mayor of Knoxville. Madeline Rogero is my guest, and proof that anything is possible.
Coming up.
Now I've got a great big job to do, and I start every day with a prayer. Then I float on the air as clouds do. I enjoy being a mayor.
This is Knoxville's Mayor, Madeline Rogero, on Anything is Possible. Thank you for joining me today. Before we skip along in your story, let's talk about music. I came to your office just to talk to you before this interview, and you sang to me. You were preparing for the Follies, but you sang. Is there any way possible I could coax you into singing just a little bit? Because you come from a musical family. Your family was full of music. Your dad loved to sing. Your brother was a rock star, so he thought. I mean, it was all of that. Would you?
I was afraid you were going to ask me to do this.
I think it'll be fun.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
See, in our family, you were expected to perform when people came over. My dad, we sang all the time, and my dad has a beautiful tenor voice. My mom sang in the CSO when she was young, when she was a early young adult. We would sing in the car, we'd sing around the house and all that. So we're used to doing that. My sister's a better singer than I am, but I enjoy doing it. So what I did for the Follies is one of the numbers, I did a solo, and I did it to the theme of I enjoy being a girl.
Right.
But which you know from the Flower Drum Song, Flower Drum Song movie, and so I changed the words some. So if I can remember the words, it goes like this. I'm a mayor and a girl, I think it's great. I am proud that my silhouette is curvy, that I walk with a sweet and girlish gait, as I solve problems swivelly and swervy. What was the next part of it? I knew I'd lose this. I adore when they call me Madam Mayor. After all those months, it's such a grueling pace. Those 4 guys, they learn they better be aware of a woman who was ready for the race. Now I've got a great big job to do, and I start every day with a prayer. Then I float on the air as clouds do. I enjoy being a mayor.
Let's give it up. Let's give it up. That's all right.
And I had a pink boa for the girl part and a top hat for the mayor part.
Oh, wow.
Like the old-fashioned mayors who wear the top hat and the coattails.
Tip your waiters and your waitresses on the way. 2 shows
so we
every
had
Friday
fun.
night.
It was for the downtown Rotary Club, and it was a fundraising event. And Brian Selesky from the opera, he accompanied me on the piano.
Wow.
He was the one that wrote me into it.
I know that was a romp then. If
Yeah,
Selesky's
it was
in
fun.
on it, it's great.
Yeah.
Now, but what's interesting, we used to sing in the car when we traveled. I hope this doesn't seem odd, but when we sang together as a family, the world felt right. It just felt okay.
Right.
Did you guys sing as a group? And what songs did you sing? Did you sing around a piano? How did the singing go in your house?
We sang in the car, we sang at the house, we sang, if we were on vacation or just driving to the store, my dad would start singing, we'd all be singing.
Really?
They really liked Broadway songs, and of course we also, the songs of the 60s we sang too, but a lot of it was the Broadway music. My dad liked that, my mom did too, and of course church music, but what was the other question?
Well, I just asked where you sang and what kind of songs you were singing, and I think you just described both of those things. But singing does add that kind of a lively. I'm just imagining your family doing the thing. All right, so now let's. You're in high school when we left off in the story. You're 9th grade. You're accepting the adventure. You're in a new town. Your father is restarting his life, resetting his life. A student. What were your interests, and where did you end up going to college?
Well, I was in high school from '66 to '70, and that was a time of change in this country. The Vietnam War was still on, and there was a lot of, the anti-Vietnam War stuff was going on at the same time, and the women's movement, civil rights movement, a lot of that stuff was happening, and I was in a high school that paid attention to all of that, and so we were constantly challenged by our teachers. I went to Catholic high school, and we had nuns and priests and lay faculty that weren't afraid to talk about all that and have us talk about current issues and challenge ideas. And it was although it was kind of scary to my parents, I think, because of all the change and the ideas we were coming home with, but it was, I think, overall looking back, it was a great time because I think as citizens, we need to understand what's going on. We need to be willing to challenge and to debate the issues and, to make our community, our state, or our country a better place. So it was really life-changing to be raised during that time and to go through and really be engaged in a lot of that stuff that was happening.
I'm trying to dial in on, I'm noticing a pattern. You have a mother and a father who affirm you and affirm possibility in you, but you're also in an educational environment that's encouraging you to think,
right? Which
is quite apart from regurgitating information, to say, here are issues, okay, you've got this skill set, how do you adapt that to dealing with a real world issue?
Right.
Do you think that kind of followed you and pushed you this desire not only to learn, but then to think and to process?
Right, I can remember Sister Catherine Ann, she taught, I guess it was history, and we would read a chapter, maybe social studies, I guess, and she would say, now close the books, let's talk about what really happened.
Wow.
Because she knew then that a lot of the things that were written in the books at the time there was sort of the whitewash of what had happened.
That is, I mean, that's really powerful. We have come to the end of part one of our interview with you, and we haven't even moved into your political career and what brings you to this moment where you're the mayor of our city. I have to say this, though. Next week, you'll hear part two, becoming a mayor, singing your way to office. But
I don't think that'll get me reelected, though.
I remember when Bill Haslam was mayor, and one of the things that I loved about watching him be mayor was he seemed like he really embraced, loved, and enjoyed the job. And you seem like you're absolutely thrilled to be mayor. Not the political part of being mayor, that you love the work of it. Is that true?
I do. I really enjoy being a mayor, as I just sang. No, I do enjoy it, and part of it is that I have such a great team working with me. Some folks who were already with the city that Bill had hired or had been on for a while, and then I brought some new folks in, and it's too much of a job for just a mayor, you know, by herself. You really need a great team, and I've got that, and we're keeping our sense of humor. That's one thing that we've promised each other, that we will work hard, but we will enjoy it, and we'll keep a sense of humor about it. You can't take yourself too seriously.
Wow.
It's serious work, but, you know, and I also am a big believer that there are many, that good people will disagree.
Right.
And so there will be a lot of opinions on what's the right way to go on any particular topic, and we have to remember that folks having other opinions, that's fine, and they're still good people. We just work out, you know, we just figure out which direction to move in, but stay positive about it all.
Madeline Rogero is our guest. Next week, part two of our interview with Knoxville's Mayor Madeline Rogero. We'll see you next week.